We always had love and support. Even when we were homeless, we had family members. A couple of times it was tough. We were by ourselves. My mother would always have us go to library, museums, and that created a dream state of reality, meaning I wanted more. I was creative in my thinking, but it was rooted on science, technical facts, and disciplines that I could adapt in the real world. When I became interested in music as a pioneer in hip hop, Mr. Sweety G, I did that in middle school, just going into high school, and it ended up becoming a career that shaped my life.
Welcome to the Powerhouse. My name is Joshua Gonzalez, but you can call me JG. This show is for the moment when you're at the crossroads and your judgment actually matters. Each episode, I sit down with a leader here in New York City to unpack one real decision under pressure. What the stakes were, trade-offs they face, and the values behind it. Then we publish a short written breakdown in the Powerhouse newsletter on LinkedIn. So if you ever had to make a hard call with imperfect information, this is for you. Let's get it started. Our featured leader is a serial entrepreneur and managing partner of RCP Venture Capital. Everyone, please welcome our featured leader, Dr. Glenn Toby.
Thank you, JG. Glad to be here. Hello, audience.
I'm honored to have you. How's your day?
Day's amazing, closing it out, and excited to be here. You have such a global reach, and I'm excited to be here to share some information and to learn as well.
Let's get it started, Dr. Toby. I read, that in your story that at an early age, you became homeless. Please elaborate on that situation and how that happened to you.
Absolutely. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. My mother had a nervous breakdown. She and my grandmother took care of my brother and I, and she lost her job because there was criminal activity with the boss and people associated, and she didn't want to be involved in it. It caused undue stress, and with the getting fired, eventually we were bouncing around, moving around from different social settings, like support from government, family help, and then after a while, she had a nervous breakdown, and we were unstable around until about the 7th grade.
And at that point in time, uh, can you tell us one specific hard decision that you had to make?
It's interesting you said that. I didn't think about it, but as a child, I remember at 8 years old when we wouldn't have a stable house. I remember as a young child remembering to just focus on three things. I'd watch my mother. I knew she was struggling with mental illness. She was always resolute, and we were always connected to her, full of love. My childhood was not sacrificed, even with these tough times. My grandmother was there, religious, spiritual background, lots of love. So I was kind of a dreamer. I couldn't really focus, almost like an ADHD, but I used it as a way to collect memories and experiences and be a dreamer, which helped me for storytelling and helped me to be expansive and listen to other people's ideas and philosophies later on. But the most focused thing was to listen to the danger, responsibilities of, making sure we don't go too far from mother and my grandmother, doing really well in school, the only place we could fairly compete because we couldn't compete maybe socially at times. And I made a decision that I would be kind of disciplined to whatever was put in front of me and to keep it narrow in scope for what was important and to realize that we'd be bouncing around for a minute until we didn't. And that was the 7th grade in Queens Village.
At a young age, you had to make that decision to stay focused on what was important. Tell us if you weren't that aware or you weren't in control of how you're gonna act and how your focus is going to be. What would be the downside of it if you just let go?
I think if as a child, obviously you could be abducted, kidnapped, sexual abuse, run away. If some children didn't have the ability to process disruption in the household. But to me, we were adaptive to all conditions because we had a spiritual upbringing. And remember, from birth until that moment, my brother and I, we had the best life. We'd go to museums, we'd go on trips. We never missed a meal. In fact, during my homelessness, we never missed a meal. We didn't suffer. It was just disruption. I always say we didn't have a house, but we always had a home.
Well,
That's where we slept.
and during that point, can you take us to an instant that when you really had to make a tough call? Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, my tough, I grew up in my part of Queens, some of the biggest drug dealers, hustlers. I mean, from the period of time from, I'd say, the late 70s through the 80s, it was a crack went crazy in the country. People that I went to school with, I grew up with, were making millions of dollars. We decided, my brother and I, not to go that route because we wanted our family to be proud. And we saw a bigger picture. I think much of that comes from the imagination, the vision of thinking I could do anything like the books that I read in my life. And taking that position was one that I could say I followed through the rest of my life and may have become my thesis of being structured, staying focused, not being disrupted, but still respecting other people's choices and philosophy.
It seems like you had a tough conversation with your sibling about not going to that route. Take us to that conversation. Did you have an agreement right away, or there was some kind of back and forth? Because, of course, situation happens, homelessness and disruptions, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, we always valued things, I think, based on not value opportunities, but spiritual and philosophical because we were so young.
Right.
Then as you continue to grow and you get older, I had entertainment music, as Mr. Sweety G, one of the pioneers in hip hop. That in my middle school allowed me to build a complete career that carried me to this day, the gift of song. Not having a lot of things, our temperament, our desires were not as immediate as some people because just to have a warm place to live and to have continuity in everyday thinking, living, growing, and building, we didn't have our temptation didn't pull us the way it did maybe some of the other kids in the area.
Until what age did you experience this? Was it until you probably graduated high school? What's the story there?
Well, before we had our own home, I still lived with my aunt, uncle, uh, Nelson and Lula Hopkins, who were amazing. They were the bridge for us to get our own place for years. So it's not like we were living on the streets, eating out of the garbage. When you say homelessness, people take it to such an extreme. Some people are
Right.
in a house and a home and they're homeless. Some people are in a dire environment that's not conducive to growth, that lacks the support that you need and the wellness and protection. We had that every second. I think from a youth to almost up until seventh grade, we had every element of a healthy traditional household, except we had tougher conditions, and that required discipline, respect, and patience. Patience I wasn't so great with, but I followed the rest of them.
um, Having some family put their effort in helping take care of you guys, do you remember any difficult conversations that you had with them that really kind of put an imprint in your life?
The imprint was don't use drugs, keep God first, don't take undue risks, and don't shame my household. That was enough. And then I think my personality and part of the way I'm driven, my DNA is competitive, work hard, discipline, and helping others. So needing so much help for so long was easier for me to be a helpful person. So I combined that in the thesis of how I work:
Right.
fair exchange, equitable exchange, hard work, and challenge myself. I'm my own competition, and I was competing to be the best person I could be. My father wasn't in my life, so I
Uh-huh.
wanted to replace him by how I lived and how I treated people, my leadership.
And where does this influence come from?
By what was missing inside the house. So what was missing in my house, what was missing in my home, in my heart, in my dreams, were the realities. Realities were only the work that I could do. Whatever God gave me, whatever I think conditions I had or whatever resources I had, I either had to put seeds in the ground, wait for the yield for it to become fruit that I could use, or be able to fast through it, through these fasting, trying times, go without it and be creative, or humble myself enough to go without it, to be flexible enough and patient enough. Again, patience was never there, but I think it created a desire for me to find a pathway to make these dreams reality. So I would say the one resource that I had was creativity and discipline. And
Creativity.
yeah, creativity.
And you lean on this until you kind of slowly made a name for yourself. When was the first time that you felt like we're having this good break? This is getting better.
It was more mental. We always had love and support.
Right.
Even when we were homeless, we had family members. A couple of times it was tough. We were by ourselves. But I think it started coming when I was able to focus on non-traditional education, like reading encyclopedias. My mother would always have us go to library, museums, and that created a dream state of reality, meaning I wanted more. I was creative in my thinking, but it was rooted on science, technical facts, and disciplines that I could adapt in the real world, school and such. So when I became interested in music as a pioneer in hip hop, Mr. Sweety G, I did that in middle school, just going into high school, and it ended up becoming a career that shaped my life in relationships and obviously historical value in terms of culture, being in the hip hop museum and making music and managing artists. All of that creates a discipline, it creates a reality, and it allows you to have a template to build something that has value, commercial value, spiritual and philosophical value.
Right. It seems like when you built your life, you're not only looking at one aspect. You know? You want to look at it holistically, spiritual, monetary, and at the same time some fulfillment on your end. Um, in terms of being this entrepreneur, being a leader on your own, what were some moments that you felt that, oh, I needed help, right? Or you asked for help from someone,
I never could ask for help, but I had great mentors.
mentors?
Yeah, mentors in the neighborhood who were good guys, husband, wife, traditional families. I would model those because they weren't, except my aunt, uncle, who were pretty much there. Um, and reading books. So I was able to go back in time, go to the future, know the difference from reality and what's not reality, fiction, nonfiction. I was heavy on investing and trying to find ways legally to make money. And I did really well in the markets. First investment was John Templeton's Templeton Funds. And I put money in that, went into Merrill Lynch with, I think, $500 or $1,000. And I came up with this system that I talk about. It's on my website. It's called The Four Boxes,
Right.
a non traditional system to finance, furthering yourself with philosophy and foundation and firmament that's not just concrete ideas, but a systemic way to get to wealth and to get to the wealth of your gift. So all of this came from innovation, putting it with real things, not just being a dreamer and gambling, but taking calculated risks. And I think mitigating risk versus reward. And I've been really good at that because I know I had enough in my community to see the difference. What happens when you go completely left? What the results are. What happens when you go completely right? And sometimes it's not resolute, it's ideological. So it gave me the flexibility of framework, especially being a creative, that I was able to have something that that's sustainable. Whether it's making money in the markets, whether it's creating something that lives forever, and I was able to combine that, which sometimes can be difficult.
And this framework that you're talking about that you've championed in your TED talk, in your book, how did this came to be? Was it just how you experienced life and you just piece it together, or where's the inspiration from this?
It's funny you said that. You mentioned when you mentioned the TED talk, turning trauma into triumph. If you look at that online, I talk about facing your failures, your trauma, your triumphs. If you don't face it, it faces you. Later on in life, it shows up, these indelible pieces that you collect and pick up, these tiny stones, whether it's a small pebble that you step on that, breaks the skin in a metaphorical sense,
Right.
and that's grow and grow, and then you have a problem. So you can either deal with all your failures and your successes, compartmentalize them, and find a way to commoditize them. Not necessarily commercialize them to money, but commoditize them where they become shields of protection. Tools can become weapons if not used rightly. And I mean, in a proper manner, in a bright manner, right? These so called tools, these vestiges of cure, the difference between medicine and poison is how you use it, how much you use it, and where you're using it and when.
That's really profound. It's how people say, oh, it's drugs. It can heal you, but if you use it the wrong way, it can kill you.
Wow.
And in this um metaphor that you brought up, how did you apply this in your life?
I think by losing and winning, you go into a business venture, I'm exposed to, say, giants in industry. Maybe I'm not earning the money I'm supposed to earn. I'm not getting a fair commission. I'm not getting the credit. They're doing some things that don't align with my ethics or principles, but I'm still in the space and I can edit. out of the picture of my life because I'm the master of my destiny. The world is my canvas. This is my brush. I can choose the colors that I want. And when it goes outside the lines, if it's not by design, it's probably not mine and I got to decline. How's that for a rhyme?
Wow. When you say, you know, you're the master, all right? You're the painter of the life. You set your boundary. If it's out, it's probably not yours. What do you think about people who, have a hard time accepting that sometimes?
Well, I think acceptance comes in time and awareness, but you have to think we are basically authors of our life. The experiences can be the length of a sentence, something that goes by you, an experience that just lasts for minutes. The chapters of your life are things that indelibly can't be passed away. Your childhood, things that people have done to you, traumas, whether it's death, incarceration, mental illness, someone not treating you right, being cheated, losing, bad mistakes. Some people have addiction issues. Those chapters of your life can be bound together to come up to be the book of your life. And sometimes the story you tell is not yours. For instance, I told a story that's not mine. That's a fictional story, but I extrapolated from it ideals, principles, philosophies that I learned over life. And I'm not plugging this thing. Here's an example, right? And this example is the Asian Power League. It's about a fictional character who has challenge of morality, education. This isn't my life, but it is a testament to much of my philosophy. It is congruent to much of my thought process. It became a international best-selling book. And I just took pieces of my life and experience and told it from someone else's vision to create a commodity. Again, picking these things up, right? When you're cooking, this is like putting together a recipe. You might pick up your failures, your successes, something you do and don't agree about, and make a story of it. A story that you can sell like a book, or a story that you can tell like a lecture, or a story you can live like the ultimate film of your life, where you're the director, the actor, and you're the owner of it as you watch it and others watch it.
Well, let's dissect that a little bit, Dr. Toby. Um, Turning essentially experience into commodity. I think that's very, I would say, if people don't discover that way to do it or don't have that perspective of doing that, they lose the ability to eventually use this for their own gain, whatever experience. Um, can you share with us some potential small steps that they could take for them to slowly practice that habit?
Well, one of them is to identify the issues. If you have anger issues, take a look at what happens when you're disruptive at the family event, at the office party, at school. What are some of the attributable issues that you can say are yours? Like, this guy triggers me. This lady triggers me. I don't operate at all in the morning. All my jobs, I don't get up. Maybe I should change my shift. Do I need to invest in a car? Do I need to carpool with somebody? Can you not carpool with them because you don't get along socially? You have to identify what your gifts are. You have to identify what your limits are and start to strategize as though you're a corporation or you're your own psychiatrist, analyzing yourself like you'd analyze a stock or behavior or the way you're looking at other people. Look at yourself with the third eye, and then you can design the recipe for your success or make a blueprint that allow you to get to the discovery of your life.
Can you elaborate on that? That kind of blew me. Wow.
Yeah. So we need to look at ourselves the way others look at ourselves. Let's whiteboard our lives. Let's look at our temperament. Somebody does something crazy. Some people are like, don't worry about it. I know this person's emotional. I don't want to press charges. I know they're rude at the job. The guy threw coffee on me. I'm making this up, guys. Or somebody you get in a car accident and this person has road rage. You can end up getting killed, shot, killed. Anything could happen. A police officer pulls you over. He's rude. He's triggering you. You're in front of your children and somebody's disrespectful. We've got to measure the measure of our lives. What is the measure of our life? It's not just how we see ourselves and how we're seen. The measure is the distance between here and the jail cell you're going to if you act crazy, the distance of this crazy boss or supervisor or someone that you're supervising that's triggering you or trying to put you in a space that'll disrupt you from your purpose. Measure the distance between where you're going to end up and where you are. Sometimes it's no action at all. Sometimes you have to remove yourself out of the space. We rarely manage things based on the deficit of our life. We always look at how great we are